story with you. I've had a rocky road in terms of getting published, and I hope the message that you get is that, if you have an idea, if you have a good idea, you need to persevere because it really can happen for you. I want to take you all the way back to the beginning for me. I actually had a comic strip in college called Igdoof, and you can see my character is sitting on the toilet there. So my sense of humor hasn't changed at all. The Washington Post said that Igdoof takes on the real world. And so I thought I was just going to march out to the real world after college and become a cartoonist. But instead, I got lots of D's. That is a rejection letter. I actually didn't really deserve to break in. The truth is, I couldn't really draw. I had this revelation. I said, what if, I can only draw at like a 6th or 7th grade level. So why don't I, draw at a 6th or 7th grade level and act like a kid, write a diary from a kid's perspective. And so that's how the idea for Greg Heffley, a diary from a kid, was born. There was a really big day in my life. I learned Flash, right, which is just a computer animation program. And the day that I found out about Flash, I literally stood up and circled the day on my calendar because I knew my life had changed. I realized that if I could publish my work on the internet, then I didn't need the gatekeepers to tell me my stuff wasn't good enough. I could go right to my audience. So I started publishing on Funbrain. Let's take a look at that. And, it was very exciting. I started getting emails from China, Pakistan, from Greece, from all over the world. After I was done writing my book, I ended up taking it to New York Comic Con and ended up meeting a guy who would be my editor. So after all that waiting and, that hard work, I met a guy who took one look at what I had written and said, this is exactly what we're looking for. And it was magic, that kind of a thing is like once in a lifetime, and I just got lucky that it was in my lifetime. I thought that I was writing for grown-ups. I was writing my books for adults. I was trying to make it, sort of a look back on their childhood. And I didn't know until my publisher told me that I had written a children's book. The first bookstore I ever saw my book in, it was under a big banner that said Books for Girls. So that was great. And then what happened was I started a tour, right? Which, it sounds very exciting to go on a book tour, but I was really just driving myself from place to place. Sometimes I'd fly all the way from Massachusetts to California, and nobody would show up, or maybe one kid would show up. It was very embarrassing. And the bookstore owners would try to make you feel better, right? Because nobody showed up and they felt bad for you. And they'd say one of two things, right? One thing they'd say is, it's really a lousy day out. Nobody wants to be, going to a bookstore, and that's why nobody showed up. And the other thing they'd say to me was, it's a really beautiful day out. Nobody wants to be going to a bookstore. But then one day I walked into a bookstore. It was kind of a small bookstore, but there were about 600 people there waiting for me. And it was so hot that the first girl in line actually threw up next to me, right? But that's how I knew I made it. When somebody throws up, you've made it to the big time. One of the coolest things I've gotten to do is I actually got to work on the Diary of a Wimpy Kid balloon in the Macy's Day Parade. So that was a cool day. So I actually got to be a part of the movie making process as well. I walked onto the set one day. My wife encouraged me. She said, you should be an extra. You should be in the background of the scene. And so I walked onto the set right at the moment that they were looking for a father for Holly Hills. If you've seen the church scene in the second movie, look out on the left-hand side. I'm sitting with my fake family. So that was really cool to be a part of that. I feel like my books are really ordinary. I think people in here are going to create something really extraordinary. It took me a long time. It took me, in terms of the time I started and the time I actually got published, it took me 11 years. So if somebody in here has a good idea, really stick with it. And what I would really like to do is to encourage everybody in here to create something great. So thank you for listening to me here. And